I'm well.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We are Thursday morning, isn't it? Thursday morning, April 10th, 2025 here in House Transportation. We're continuing our education piece and learning everything DMV 101 and all of the areas of. And we'll head through that this morning. I guess, Wade, you're up first this morning. Wade Cocker, please want to join us in the seat. And we're going to, like I said, continue our DMV and welcome to committee. We appreciate having you. And you probably haven't met everybody before, but
I was here once before.
yep, that's right. We were earlier. We did do introductions then, didn't we? Excellent.
So good morning. I'm Wade Cochran. I'm the Executive Director of Enforcement and Safety. And before I get started, I actually brought some knickknacks today. This is, pass those around. That's a little bit on the front page. It gives a history of DMV enforcement. So it's kind of a neat little piece. And then in enforcement, we do coins. So they're challenge coins, and a little bit of history of challenge coins is if you go after coffee or if you adult beverage at night and the person you're with doesn't have one, and they're buying your coffee or beverage. So
Commercial.
It looks like it.
So if we put this on our sleeve. And pull
you're
that
good.
over-
Just make sure it's on the right one or the left one. So,
Send one down.
Citizen direct. It's like a bit hard.
it is. Maybe it's
That's
whatever it was.
Where'd you get that?
It's great for cabaret.
Get out
of jail free coin.
I don't know about that.
Send one down to Representative McCoy's desk.
A coin is more of a collector's.
Okay, sorry.
Like a lot of law enforcement collect different coins. So you'll see in offices they have them. But what they call it is a challenge coin. So if you're out with coffee or something with someone, you can put your coin down, and if they don't have theirs, then they buy your coffee or your adult beverage after hours. So
People need to know about it.
It's a particularly big deal in the military, isn't it?
it is military, same thing.
I have
So
a constituent who's flown fixed wing for Army Air Guard, but he's been all over and he's flown multiple Secretaries of Defenses. And he has some really impressive.
I bet he does.
Coins. And I have a friend of mine in the Border Patrol that's been asking coins for a long time. He gave me an American flag with a little bit of a ledge, with these little,
Yes.
so you can display.
right.
I only have a few, but this would be very cool to put it on. Thank you very much. For the people that do this is a big deal.
Yeah, I've got a few, some different ones, so they're neat to collect over time.
That's awesome.
So obviously I'm executive director, and I'll give you a little bit of my history to get started. I worked 18 years with Montpelier Police Department, worked myself from patrol up through, I left as a detective sergeant. During that time, I was assigned to the Vermont Drug Task Force for 5 or 6 years, where I got to grow this great bushy beard and have earrings, unrecognizable. I should have brought that picture. Actually, when I shaved it, when I got out, my daughter asked me if I could put it back on. So I didn't know how to take that, but during that time, then I needed the next step in my career. So I went to the town of Norwich and became the police chief down there. Very challenging police department at the time. Great town, great atmosphere, built the agency back up, and the opportunity at Vermont at the Department of Motor Vehicles came up. I was very interested in that, knowing Tony Fakis. He kind of gave me the ins and outs of it, and I put in for the position, and I was hired by the prior commissioner. So it's been a learning experience every day. Nothing changes. Just this morning, that's why I was a little late, is one of the parts that I oversee is e-permitting. And the girl came up this morning and said, we've got tractor trailers that have to back up about 5 to 10 miles, depending on where they can turn around, because they shut down a bridge and didn't tell us about it. So that's been rectified. We're good. But that was my challenge as soon as I walked through the door. So it's a learning process for sure.
Representative Burke?
You get to drive the electric motorcycle.
I do have a motorcycle license. I have not yet, but yes, I fully intend to. So, yes. Yeah. And when the commercial motor vehicle comes in, they'll go over that in the program for that, so. But it'll be out more this summer, I hope. So, but so a little bit, and that was basically my career. And like I say, I learn every day and we move forward. Part of the reason I wanted to come to DMV is I'd always worked for municipal government, but I kind of wanted to bring that touch to state government. It was more of a personal, you got to work with the community. And I thought, hey, why can't this work within the state? And so far it has. I have a great team. They're receptive. And they're really up for whatever challenge we give them, which has been great so far. I'm sure there's some days that they shut the door and they're like, director, but that happens. So just got a sheet here I want to go over. So some of the units that I actually oversee are, maybe I didn't. Some of the units that I oversee are enforcement and education. Within enforcement, and I know you all saw the slideshow earlier, so I didn't bring that, but Nick has plenty of slides for you. We have the investigations, which and Nick is here, so he'll go over those. They do all investigations, frauds. They look over our inspection station. I won't steal your thunder, so I won't go much into that. And then I have the commercial motor vehicle unit, which is there are 29 of the guys in uniform out there working the road every day. I also have now e-permitting, which is the situation I told you about this morning. That is definitely a learning process, but we're getting there. That's new to me. But what they do is they take permits from Canada and all over the United States. And they say, this is where you can go. These are the roads that are open. So they really have to be on top of their game. So when somebody shuts down a road, they're like, oh no, what do we do? And they find another way or another route for these people to travel. And that's set up online so they can do their permit online and they can just send in the information and electronically we send it back.
Yeah, so the e-permitting is fairly new. I think we heard about that at
Yes.
this committee last year. Because before it had to be paper and
Correct.
e-permitting, you got it right on your phone.
Yeah.
So truckers need to get the e-permit if they're outside of normal weight limits. Is that right? Is that how it works? Or moving something that has certain restrictions?
Correct. Weight limits.
Otherwise, I'm just, sorry,
Oh, you're
I'm just assuming that if I'm driving a normal truck, within the normal weight limits from Massachusetts to Canada, I just can zip right through.
You're fine. So it's basically size and weight. So, the oversized trucks that you see, maybe like Bechtel Homes or one of those businesses, they would have to look into getting a permit depending on where they're traveling and the size of the load that they're hauling. So, yeah.
And materials too. I mean, if I'm bringing radioactive material from one place to another, do I need are there special permits for that?
Absolutely. And that's a whole different ballgame when radioactive stuff comes into the state. In fact, and I'll let CVE give you an example because I know they've got some in their slideshow, but just this week we dealt with a radioactive load that came in and I went up to it. It was interesting. It cleans medical equipment. And I was told, and I can't remember, I had it written down what the chemical or the mineral was, but it was no bigger than my pinky. And the container itself was, it just huge. It was probably 4 feet wide by 4 feet tall. And the radiation that was even putting off, it was a safe level to travel on the roads. There are certain perimeters that they have to stay in. But you could feel the heat. You got in the truck and, you could feel the heat from it. I think it was 114 degrees. So, the steel is probably 6 to 12 inches thick. So it's pretty incredible.
So the e-permitting primarily for trucks that have special.
Exactly.
Outside of the normal.
Exactly.
permits. Yeah.
And commercial vehicle folks will work with them. And with this one in particular, they had to work with the Border Patrol because coming across the border. So it had to work for them time wise, had to work for us. We got them through and got them on their way to Massachusetts. And they're escorted. Anything like that is always escorted by police. So it gets escorted, like our folks escorted them to New Hampshire. New Hampshire State Police then escorted them to Mass. And it steps up almost each time when it gets to Mass. Then there's a helicopter up ahead. They have their tactical unit with them. So there has been threats in the past. They're not for years, but for safety reasons, they do that. It was pretty neat to see. So I'll tell you in a couple of years if it was a good thing, I guess, but it was right. I'll blame it on that.
On the normal, the less, maybe not the radioactive, but even then, probably repeat people most of the time. I mean, standard kind of the business that is done, or is it a lot of one-offs, or most of the time it's kind of this most consistently the same?
This one,
Businesses are the same people.
sure, this was the
In
same.
general.
In general, this was the same company that I think it's 2 or 3 times a year they come across, so we're used to dealing with them. And they have their paperwork always squared away. So, I mean, there is the time, and if there is the chance, I should say, and if the radioactivity, I think I'm saying that right, is too high, then they get sent back across the border. So, and then I guess Canada has to do their part there, which I'm not familiar with, but.
With the standard day in and day out, most of those transport companies are the same, moving the same loads, the same, I'm talking about all the housing, the large pieces, et cetera, is it not the same, generally speaking, the same shippers in the e-permitting world most of the time?
I couldn't answer that. I don't know. I do know that I talked to the captain and he said that the group that we dealt with the other day has approximately 30 drivers, and that's all they have across the United States. And they're the ones that get contracted to move the chemicals or whatever they're moving, special licensure, and which I'll make sure Gene touches on there, his lieutenant when he comes. So, anything else on that? Or, and then of course we have our support staff in the office. We have 3 ladies that work in there. They support the commercial motor vehicle side, more administrative side. Some of Nick's investigators, we have someone assigned to them. And then we have someone that's assigned to Pat McManaman's group, the education side, and school bus and motorcycle education. Then the last unit that I have, so I said commercial motor vehicle, and Jeremy Desjardins has a business services unit. It was kind of a goal, or I guess a goal is the best way, that we serve our businesses better in the state of Vermont. So some of the businesses that we serve for that unit would be our automobile dealers. And Jeremy will be in to go over everything that he does there, but he has a team of 11 people, 3 non-sworn investigators, and then office personnel that will process all of a dealership's paperwork. So it's much quicker when you buy. I don't know if anybody's bought a vehicle recently, but it's becoming much more faster. So they can produce the paperwork quicker, and when you go out the door, you've got everything you need. So, which is, everybody remembers the days of 4 to 6 hours in a car dealership. So hopefully those are gone. So, and so those are the 4 groups basically that I oversee during the day. Can be problems coming up at any point throughout the day. We try to work through them. Crashes for commercial motor vehicles, we obviously respond to those. We assist state police. We fall right in line with the governor's 10-point plan. Homicides, anything major that would happen in the state of Vermont, either Captain Davidson's team or Captain Cody's team, they'll get someone to go out and assist the state police, because as we all know, they're short too. So try to help them out.
Representative Pouch has another.
Yeah.
So you do have law enforcement officers, and there's different levels, so you have level 2 and level 3. So
No, not within the Department of Motor Vehicles. We have just level 3. So to work for us, we require that you have to have 3 years of law enforcement experience. For many reasons, the main reason is it's hard to take someone just off the street and bring them into an investigative or a specialty role like CVE to work the bigger trucks or cases that they would work.
So then most of your officers have worked their way through, they've gone through the academy and all that. They've got several years of law enforcement. And they're sort of brought in as experienced.
That's correct. Yeah, and I know that Captain Davidson sitting over in the corner over there, he did put one person through the academy, but that person also worked for us prior. He worked as a civilian investigator. And to my knowledge, that's the only one that we've put through. So do people get upset with us at times because law enforcement is so short in the state of Vermont? I can't think of a time that we've really gone out and said, please come to us. People will come to us and say, hey, do you have any openings? And if the person's a good officer, good candidate for us, then obviously we're gonna look into them and bring them on. So,
But your authority is this as much as a typical state police, that we might run across on the highway.
correct. We have the same authority, just we further our training. And I'm not sure if you remember the slideshow, but one of the trainings that the truck guys go through are part A, B, and C, I think it is classes, and it just hones in on their expertise for weight, size, the logs that truckers maintain. As for the captain's side of the house, they obviously need to hone in on different investigation skills. So we are constantly trying to build those skills for them too, which most of them, we make sure that most of them have at least the beginning or the entry level of that skill. And then we just build from there. So.
There you go, Seth.
Well, maybe just one more question. So if there's a big truck, maybe a truck crash on the highway, who actually has the jurisdiction at the end? You both work the investigation and support each other, but who at the end makes the, accident report, the final, like, this is what happened, I guess?
Sure. So we work very well with the state police. So we have on call, much like the state police do. So if it's after hours, and that's the example I'll give first, if it's after hours, they'll call our on call. If it's say a serious injury, if it's just a slide off, we might not go because the tow truck's going to come out by the time the guys get there, it's already gone. But if it's a serious crash or accident, our truck team will go out. And then they work with the state police. Do you want to do the accident report or do you want us to do it? A lot of times we'll do it. A lot of times they'll do it. So it's 50-50. However, the inspection process has to be done by our folks. So they may do a preliminary inspection there, but then the vehicle will be towed elsewhere and done. In the worst case scenario, a fatality, the truck's really going to be gone through by the team. And that's better done offsite, not beside the road. So they'll tow it, say to I know they've gone to Williston State Police Barracks, or if they, wherever's the safest, most room for them to do it.
So any commercial vehicle accident, you guys get involved in some way.
Correct. Yeah. We try to. I mean, if we're called, we'll definitely do our best to be there. And I know I've asked the captain to please send the guys, that's what we're here for. That's what we're going to do. And they've done an exceptional job on that. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
So your guys are familiar with Route 78 and the regular amount of commercial, like I see a lot of nodding. That's all
Very
that's
familiar.
20 from you right there. So you're very familiar with Route 78. Representative White?
So you may have partially answered my questions, but how many police officers do you have in DMV? And you talked about you're investigating commercial crashes. Interested in what other types of investigations that team or your team takes
Sure.
on?
So if it's okay, some of the investigations I'm going to have Nick talk about because he has some slideshows, especially theirs, with the truck team because they're not here. So I will talk some about that, but you'll also hear from them too. So they may add a little more than what I can. Their main thing is they did, I think, over 7,000 inspections on commercial vehicles. I'm not sure if you remember the photos that I showed, the tires that were bald, the straps around, that's what they'll do. They'll put people out of service. One thing that I identified when I came here is why aren't we finding either more narcotics or things like this that we know are traveling on on these vehicles. At the time we only had one canine. So I've been able to find some funding, find some trainers. And we've actually added, and Nick is one of them. We're sending, it'll be 3 dogs by July through narcotics training. And I'll let you talk about yours. So, we are working with a Cloverfield canine training, amazing facility. They're really working well with us, working with our officer schedules, because sometimes it's hard to get in there. And it's been phenomenal so far. Inspector Sabrina Booten is one of them. And her dog, she sent me a picture this weekend of her big tough dog sleeping in between her other 2 dogs. So I said, yeah, it's a real tough canine there. So, but we will, once the dogs get up and get going, expect we're going to try to bring them around. So it's not going to be your typical, you can't touch the dog. So, you
You're
can.
really looking for like heroin, I mean, kind of like, obviously not marijuana because that's legal, but the other, more
So
illicit drugs.
so you bring up the marijuana. It is legal, but federally it's not legal. So we do have Raj Haley up north, and his dog Annie. If I don't know if anyone's seen Annie, is this little tiny black lab. It is a cute little dog, but she is marijuana certified. So if we have to, if they're checking trucks, they're okay to do that with a marijuana certified. Sabrina and Nick and I have to discuss what his is going to do, because Nick's position is a little bit different. But Sabrina and Hammond, the other officer down south, their dogs will be full patrol certified. So cocaine, heroin, search and rescue type deal. So, yeah, all the stuff that we don't want to touch. So.
Yeah, get out of our state.
Right. Yeah. We wish, right? We're trying. So that's amazing to get these dogs on board. It's really going to be a huge tool for us, and hopefully soon. But
And are investigations, are you pulling people over on the road, or are they scheduled with, so
sure. So investigations, theirs is a whole different thing. As far as commercial motor vehicle, yes, they're stopping trucks every day. They're doing checkpoints. One of the other things that we participate in is Governor's Highway Safety Program. We don't do a lot of it, but we do have a small grant that we work. Some of Scott's team will work that grant as well. So they're out there, even though they're investigators, they're putting the uniform on, they're going out and stopping cars and playing part in that program. Because highway safety is our ultimate goal, and that's, what we're still trying to do, even though we have to work in other areas. So, okay.
Yeah, and you also are in the sort of background when there's a question about titles and the sort of legal paperwork associated with it.
Yes.
DMV, you're the ones who also do that. You were saying there were people, in the office, they're working those.
Yes, and like I say, that'll be also a Nick's slideshow, which he'll really touch on. But Scott has essentially four investigators, they're swamped right now. Anytime there's any chance of fraud, if we figure out how they're committing the fraud, they're figuring out how to get away with it again. So the guys have to be sharp, and they're constantly, doing the job the best they can. And we're trying to work with operations, how can they tighten up what they do to make, it a little harder for these people to commit fraud. It's a constant, but it's great. It's what we do. So, but Nick will definitely touch more on that in his slides. So, and that's basically my units all together. Those are, my day-to-day, I guess is how we'll put it. But one thing that I was asked to bring over was some stats. You wanted some stats. So, COVID, obviously we have COVID time, but as far as, and I believe Nick has one of these slides in his too, but so the captain went back to 2017. And in 2017, and I'm going to let Nick touch more on AVIP, and he'll explain that to you. But 2017, there was 6,337 no inspection tickets written, VCVCs. That changes. Obviously, it stays relatively the same. In 2018, there were 6,906. But then we look down to the COVID time, 2020, 2021, we're around 1,700 to 2,000. So they drastically dropped, which we know why during that time. But in 2002, the little sticker that was on your window was changed. However, we didn't start seeing those stickers really until 2023. But in 2022, before that sticker change really had taken effect, they had dropped way down to 1,615 tickets written. 2023, when the stickers were out there, they were around 2,028. And then last year is 1,948. So it's kind of all over the board, but it's significantly dropping. I have been talking to the commissioner about a few ideas, so hopefully, but we also know that staffing levels, whether it be municipal, state police, are lower. So I guess we don't know the true effect or true cause of the less and less tickets each year. So we can assume that it's either less staffing. Is it the sticker design? I don't know.
And then are those are stops not just by your group, but by the entire,
That's the entire state of Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's state police, municipal police,
correct.
and those are stops or tickets.
Tickets.
These are not criminal tickets, but civil tickets issued for speeding, for, I don't know, bad driving,
Right. The ones that I gave you here are just vehicle not inspected.
Oh,
So
okay.
those are just inspection.
Okay.
What I did, and I didn't make the copies, I apologize, but I can leave this too. This is what I did run was basic rule, which is speeding. And I went back 5 years with the help of Captain Davidson. We did, let me see, we did the basic speeding. We did defective equipment, which would be, a headlight out, which you don't see a lot of tickets written generally for that. That's more of a warning, which also leads me to warnings aren't always documented. Some agencies have different policies. Some say a verbal warning's fine. I think a written warning is much better because it can update that person's information in our system. Display and number plates, which could be no front plate, could be the plate's crooked on the car. Likely no front plate was why that was written. Let me just see some more basic rules. Speeding is generally high. And no registration just for this year. And the dates on this year that I'm looking at is from January 1st through March. Just the no registrations were 794. So there's a lot of unregistered vehicles out there.
As suspected.
Right.
And that data you've been gathering, will that show us from 2017, 2018, pre-COVID?
So I went back, yes. I went back and Captain Davidson as well to 2020. So, and the data is we have to go through the judicial barrel to get it. So this is how they sent it. It's a little bit, it's not that hard to read, but it is a little challenging. Obstructed windshield, some of those, like I think there were 60 tickets written for obstructed windshield, which could be the little Christmas tree hanging. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just, get to a spot to break.
Yeah.
Represent that.
Sorry to ask so many questions. I mean, I like all this data. It would be good if we could be given, hey, here's tickets for the last 5 years or 10 years. And just so we can see the trends, understanding COVID, was, it screws up everybody's data. But like speeding tickets,
Mhm.
the number of speeding tickets really doesn't mean anything unless we know speeding. And we have, I'm assuming we have on the side of the road measuring that say, hey, here's how much speeding gone up, but tickets gone down, or tickets gone up, speeding's gone down. I mean, it would be good to relate how your ticketing is impacting public safety, I guess.
Sure.
I'll just quickly say, we went to the AOT main place there where they got the big screens and they're sort of monitoring the entire state. It was
Right.
fascinating. And, they could look and you could see, a car or vehicle on the highway, it's going 78 miles an hour.
Right.
And so it seems like we have, that it would be good to get, here's the effort and, totally give you total credit for the, the hard work that's going in. But is it slowing cars down? Or is it, changing behavior and making the roads safer, I guess?
Sure.
So it would be good to get data like that.
And I think the state police would be a big help there, as they're the ones, I think they're the biggest agency anyway in the state that would be writing the VCVCs.
Right.
Their opinion or their stats would,
Who's in charge of the overall data?
that would be,
The number of tickets, speeding on Vermont roads. Is it your group? Is it their group? Is it not really?
it's actually the Vermont Judicial Bureau. So,
Okay,
'cause that's where all the tickets go into. But again, that's just tickets. So I know a lot of people don't like to write tickets. They like to write warnings. So, and warnings aren't necessarily tracked. So should they be? Probably. I mean, that's a true indicator, right? If you have it all. I know when I used to stop cars a lot, I would write more warnings, but I would write a written warning because in my opinion, a written warning goes a little further when you have a piece of paper. The younger kids, they'll lose their license, if they're a junior operator, if they get a 3-point violation. And that's just a hardship a lot of times for the family. So maybe a good roadside education and teaching the kids. So that's where you'll see a lot of written warnings. Some people feel differently.
yeah, we had a police officer in Heinsberg who said, every traffic stop's an education opportunity.
It is.
And so the warnings were totally fine. And
Yeah.
I'll admit, I got stopped one time, given a warning,
Once,
So,
only once.
well, and, it, for some people anyways, it certainly changes your behavior.
Sure. It does. I even know as a law enforcement officer, when I get stopped, I'm like, oh, I start shaking. So, and yes, I've been stopped once.
Just want to make sure I'm understanding. Is a written warning, is there a paper trail for that?
So it depends on the individual agency. Some, like I mentioned, some people don't even require written warnings. In Valcor, there is a field where people can enter that. But it's some agencies don't make their officers enter into the field if it's just a warning. Race data has to be entered. But as far as data on the stop or the speed, no. When you write a ticket, though, however, you do have to put the speed they were going and the posted speed. So if you could pull all that data with warnings, that would probably tell a better story if all the people writing warnings. But like I say, I don't feel that they are. So.
So how do the state police, I'm just thinking about our interstate, do this, where speeding seems to be, kind of just my observation, a growing problem. Is that, do you know, the state police, would they, if they wrote a warning, would that be one of the ones that's tracked?
I don't know their policy. Unfortunately, when I worked for Montpelier, we had to, and that's goes by whoever, your chief is and what they would like to see our policy. Some feel that it's really important, some don't, but for tracking purposes, that would be huge. So,
It's more local control. Okay.
yes, yes. So, and I can do is email these numbers. I'll make sure Matt gets these over to the committee. And I can also leave the sheet here. So, and this will give back like a 2020, so prior COVID. Yeah, so I will make sure that's here. And that's what I have unless anyone has any further questions for
We
me.
certainly have lots of questions and that's a good thing. It means you're hitting in the right areas of what people want to know. You said, I'm sorry, so you oversee the whole budget. The 30 officers you're overseeing that whole budget piece, 30 law enforcement officers. How many are you budgeted for and how many do you have vacant and whatnot? How many could you carry? How many do you have?
So right now we're full staff right now.
30 is your number.
30, and how I'll say that, that's just the uniformed. So I think we're about 50 with non-sworn office personnel and then the business service unit. So and that's more of what some of the people from the operations have come over and worked within the business service unit. Just a little bit different job for them, but
Given all the assignments that you give out, but if you, in general, the thought would be you have the ability to put out 30 uniformed officers or whatnot, and you have that and you are fully staffed.
yes,
Compared to perhaps what we hear in many of the areas of law enforcement, you have what you have for a budget and you have all of your tools that you need or the resources that you are currently allotted to have.
we are.
Okay.
Would I love more? Yes. I'll put that in there.
Okay.
I know Scott's team is, those guys, they're swamped, to get Nick here today, I'm lucky, but we twisted his
Bring him
arm.
up and hear from him here pretty quick.
I'll have to buy him lunch, but that's okay.
Representative Pound?
And I'll just ask one more question. So we, last year passed a bill, to do a pilot program using cameras at, work zones on the state highways. And, it's just a pilot program, 3 spots. And we had the Agency of Transportation come in and say they didn't have anybody that could do the enforcing, which would be getting on a computer from the third party, contractor who does them. They take the picture of the license
Yeah.
plate, they, everything's calibrated, they show everything's set up. And then they, send that, and that, according to the bill, needs to be a licensed officer to issue that civil offense. And there were 3 levels. First one was a warning only, written warning.
Correct.
And the next 2 had fines associated with it. And we were told by the agency that there wasn't enough people to do that. Were you approached
I was, yeah. I was approached about that and on 2 different levels. Did I have administration that could handle? I mean, you could be talking 1,000 tickets a day. It depends. It could be 10, right? It
Right.
depends on.
Well, I mean, I think we had testimony from Connecticut and they had the numbers
Oh, great.
for their thing. It wasn't 1,000.
Okay,
It might not have been 10 either. So,
sure.
yeah.
We were only given estimates and the 1,000 number sticks out because that's what I was told. I was never given, I was never given the number. So, however, I know that what I have for team, they're very occupied on their job now. It would be hard to find that. If I could find someone that could do that, yes, I'm sure we would do our part. So,
Yeah, thanks.
yeah,
But you didn't line up to volunteer for it.
I did not line up.
Not, I want to make sure we're clear on where we're at in terms of, is there resources out there? They're all fully applied today.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
I know that there is different levels, like we talked about, that of law enforcement, level 1, level 2, they could, a sheriff's department maybe might have someone. I don't know. I'm speaking for them, which they're probably going like this right now. So,
Only speak for your group
yes.
and your approach.
Yes.
The fact that you're fully staffed is probably a reflection of a well-run organization, I would guess.
And I think have applications dropped, yes. But we always have plenty of applications and people that want to come to us. So very lucky and we're going to hopefully keep that going. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate Coming in. Thank you for the samples and issue the items.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I'll get the cards out for you.
And we'll welcome up. Let's make sure our missing members get theirs and
Well, something.
Nick Hendry, Lieutenant Nick Hendry, welcome.
Thank you.
Are we committee?
Take me a sec to get set up here.
Not a problem.
Oh, are you trying to? Are you just plugging in your power?
Yeah, it was just my
Oh, okay.
power. I was on the Zoom meeting, it looks like now. Maybe I've dropped.
So doesn't mean that you don't want to do it.
But either way,
So you still want, you let me know. That's good.
They really built me up pretty high there. So, put some answers.
Yeah, we're working.
I kicked out of the Zoom meeting, so to be able to share my presentation.
Well, if you got kicked out, that's a step ahead of how far I could have gotten. It would mean that you actually were in at one time.
I was in to begin, and now it just says connect. So. Yes,
Try refreshing the page and clicking that link one more time, it'll probably.
yeah, it just. It says it's doing something, but it doesn't seem to.
I help you out, but.
I'm just gonna, I'm gonna start all over and see what happens.
Maybe coming up is trying to join the meeting, so if you just like completely,
I just completely X out of
Yeah.
everything.
and it's doing the same thing.
It's- Yeah. I don't know if I'm just too far from the public. Is there running a Wi-Fi?
Are you on the paper one?
The public one.
That's your one. I had you in here.
Yeah, I was in earlier to be ahead of the game now. Now I'm behind.
Don't worry about that. That'll fit in well around here. We have, that happens a lot.
It's, my kids don't communicate with me like, you know, like by phone, by text.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. That's why I was going, I'm gonna go that way right now.
I hit it, something blows up at me. Then I can't figure out how to get rid of it.
And they're laughing the whole time.
They are.
It's mine are.
They
I don't
are.
want to speak
Yes,
for you,
they
or
are.
mine are laughing at me the whole time.
Oh, it's funny, if I send them a text, they won't. I like, it's just a dad, that's what people do. Stop.
Well, I find that funny. They'll text or
Yeah.
whatever right away, but if you call them, it doesn't get answered. I'm like,
No,
well,
they
wait a
don't
minute,
answer.
you're obviously on your phone.
You don't answer their phone
Oh.
call right away.
If their mother, they don't call, but if their mother doesn't answer right away, then they'll call me, where's mom? I'm like. "How the heck would I-"
Let me look in my
Look,
crystal
we grew up
ball.
when we didn't have these. We trusted you to just go about your day. Anyway, yes, but if you don't, you're totally right about that. If you don't answer, that's a problem. But if they don't answer, that's totally fine. I see we have the same.
We talked about that.
Same paradigm, yes.
Parents had phone tree. So my mother used to go indoors and go outside, I go outside all day, I was gone, kick ball, whatever, kick the can, whatever we did.
Mhm.
And then when it was time to come home from dinner, she went to the phone tree and started calling all her friends. And they would say, have you seen Scotty? Have you seen Scotty? Have you seen Scotty? Eventually one would answer and she would say, send him home. And I'd get someone going out the window saying, hey, I'm home dinner. And that's how we tracked everybody.
Sure, yeah.
I can't even imagine kids today.
Yeah.
Doing that. Oh, I missed that.
I just like, maybe we find what they were having for dinner, see if it was better than what we were.
That's it. That's it.
That looks like a different coin right there.
It is.
I don't know if that's, is that a coin?
Oh,
Oh, there.
there we go.
It's just, there's a little bit of a lag, I guess.
Uh-oh. In honor of our former vice chair, retired vice chair, a covered bridge. Covered bridges were a big deal for Butch.
We did that for that one town, but I'm gonna return to that conversation, because
I know that they were,
I had some
I guess-
people who were interested. The Transportation Advisory Committee meeting asked me about how could we get, how could they get money for covered bridges that were damaged? And I thought it was on the statute, and I said, we need to do something, we only do it for one town.
covered.
It seems
I know
to-
the covered bridges are big, he had 6 of them in his town, in his district, I believe, but
Yeah.
former. Anyway, our retired vice chair. Welcome
Thank you.
to committee. It looks like we're all good to go. We're all anxious to hear what you have to say, and
Okay.
I noticed right away you got a different coin. Oh, now it just, now whatever you did, it undid what you had. Yeah. Now we really undid it.
At the meeting.
Out of the meeting?
I don't know. He's gone.
Okay, put in the meeting ID password one more time, I'll let you back in. Did you try to switch displays while? Okay, okay, no.
Representative Burke, that one town put they welded that huge structure now before the, I don't remember where it was, I saw it on the news briefly.
Linden.
They put a thing out in front of it so you can't get through that in order to get to the bridge to damage the
Oh,
bridge.
that's good.
So they did I don't know, it's like the local high school or the trade school, whatever they did, and they got with somebody else and they welded up this huge structure so that the truck hits that first before it destroys,
Ah.
continues to
Yeah.
re-destroy. Somebody, well, you guys are up in it's up in the kingdom
Yeah,
somewhere.
it's a shortcut to get to LI when you come off I-91. That little bridge.
Well, and now,
It's protected.
they have a big structure.
Where's that,
protect
which town?
Linden.
Okay.
They put up yeah, sort of like the thing they put up in the notch obviously worked, right?
Did we hear anything?
There was
But
only
there
one
in-
truck, right? The whole
Right at the beginning.
Yeah.
What do they call, what is it? What is?
chicanery, right? Chicanery,
Not
chicanery.
chicanery, but
Yeah.
it was chicanery.
What was it called?
Think you're right.
This is where I meet one of my kids. Right here. My daughter's.
It's on live, you know, it's one of those things you're not supposed to say. My kids drive over the notch every day in the summertime.
Is it not letting you put this?
And they do it every day, and
And
they
it's-
work at like 5:30 in the morning. So they go.
Let me reset. One more time.
Yeah. Is it just a presentation that you need?
You come that way, you know, and then
Pull it up and
come,
I.
they
can
to just skip over, they go on the opposite lane to it at 5 o'clock. in the morning.
Do you have it or you need to email it or?
Yes.
Um,
Ten's great.
The
Ten's
difference
great.
to work in the winter there versus working in summer, that's so much different. But anyway, so.
I have
I'm not really happy with the
Oh.
Yeah, my kids working in really fun, the tips at the golf course at the school is far better than they are at your shitters. So it's worth it. 45
No
minutes,
question.
we have the notch to use, an hour and a half, they go around with the traffic on the mountain road, let's go the other way. And it's golf, so they have to be there at 5:30, 6 o'clock. So there's no traffic, but then they get out, and they have to deal with all the hikers and stuff to get, so they, and if you have to come in for, it's real change about, it's easy to get home. It's easy to get there, so I think it's gonna be just.
Yeah. She said she just.
We had it a couple of parking lots up there too, but that just encourages more.
Yeah.
They do, absolutely.
I think we're good. I think she's just gonna run it from back there and we'll give her cues when we need to switch pages. So.
Okay.
Guys are
Ready
ready?
for the full, almost the full screen, there we go. Great.
I don't know where I'm looking at. That's in front.
Established 1927.
Right, so I'll start. Are all ready? Perfect.
There we go.
So,
Welcome.
like Director Cochran said, I'm Lieutenant Nick Hendry. I've been working here for about 2 years now. My life before this was also a municipal police officer for about 10 years. 6 of those I spent as a investigator, a general detective, working all types of crimes and stuff at a smaller department with only 1 detective, so I was the only one there. So worked everything. And then I came through as one of those pre-certified officers with some investigative experience, and I'm in the investigations unit. So I don't handle any CVE or commercial vehicles type stuff. So as Director Cochran was saying, questions about investigations or specifically with DMV, that's just something that myself and my team and a couple other people work on. You want to go to the next slide? So this is a little bit about what the investigations unit does. So we provide any criminal and regulatory enforcement within inspection stations. It used to be dealers until they just started the new dealership unit. And then just anything to do with the DMV. I heard someone say, you know, fraud within titles at the DMV earlier, right? So that would be something that would be forwarded to our department. So like it says, any fraudulent activity in the branch offices, also anything that comes through the mail will get forwarded to us. We also have a small regulatory part in where we audit inspection stations, make sure that they're doing the process properly, make sure, you know, as part of, you know, the governor's plan and stuff is that they're not taking advantage of anybody, hopefully, trying to charge for things that aren't needed. Sorry, things are popping up. Like it says, to date, about 1,120 stations that are inspecting vehicles right now, with over 3,000 active inspection mechanics that are working at those stations. There's also just under 600 new and used car dealers. So sometimes we're dealing with the dealers now, but that's starting to fade into that dealers unit. We also investigate the total absence program, which has about 1,000 people on it. If you're not familiar with that program, that's someone that's previously lost their license for life. The DMV has says, or the Judicial Bureau and the DMV together have said, you cannot drive a vehicle ever again. Normally we see this with like high amounts of driving under influence convictions or something like that. You'll get a life suspension. Vermont DMV, along with, there's not many in the United States that do this, wanted to figure out a way to get those people back their licenses after a proven track record of you know, abstinence from alcohol. So they started this total abstinence program, which means they basically, and I'll get into it more at the end, but basically they get their license back if they swear that they will not use any alcohol or drugs for the rest of their life. And if they are found to, we take their license back. It's a one-time thing. If you mess up, it's done. You don't get to go back and get it again. Obviously a lot of education and outreach, which I'll talk about later. We do some outreach to some of the local technical colleges all throughout Vermont. We went automated with all our systems in 2017. I'll talk about the AVIP, which is the Automated Vehicle Inspection Program. We made everything nice and easy for mechanics. It's on a tablet, and that data is then automatically relayed directly to this AVIP portal, which DMV has access to. So it's instead of waiting, you know, there's no more writing on the back of inspection stickers by a mechanic. There's no more of them filling out a form. It's nice and easy, brought up on a tablet, boom, 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 boom. Granted, there is always the electronic failures like we're seeing today, but for the most part, it's a great system. We rewrote after we went automated. We also rewrote the inspection manual. There was actually 3 manuals at that time that we brought down to 1. And yeah, that's about it there. It's noted on here. We do a lot. The investigations unit, as Director Cochran talked about earlier, is we're not out there in uniform, like stopping cars on a daily basis, but we are, you know, getting calls from other agencies daily, like, hey, can you help us? We just had an armed robbery. They took off in a car. This is what I've got for information. Can you help me? And a lot of success stories of, you know, certain car, a certain year, certain color, and like 1 or 2 numbers of the plate of us finding that plate and finding that vehicle. And I could tell a story later on if you're interested, but so before I came to this job, I was also part of this, the ATF task force in Vermont. Captain Davidson was part of this group. It was a couple years ago. There was a lot of violent, especially gun violence happening in Chittenden County. They started this group of these, you know, what we would consider high-level investigators and police officers that would come together when there was a shooting and investigate at the fullest. I mean, we ran around all summer, night and day, picking up people that were involved in violent things in mostly Chittenden County. Every once in a while, we branch out to Franklin County, but mostly that. So some of my work with that, I've also used some of our DMV investigations to help solve some crimes through the ATF and their violent crime section. But I can talk more about that in a little bit. Unless there's questions, we're going to the next one. So this is what our unit, just the investigations unit, is made up of right now. So we actually just, with the dealers unit, shifted some of our civilian personnel over to the dealers unit, which actually brought us from 9 investigators down to 7 for the entire state. Of those investigators, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 of the 7, or no, I'm sorry, 5, 6 of, sorry, there's 7 districts, there's 2 supervisors. So 6 of us are sworn law enforcement officers, a couple of civilian investigators. So just wanted to bring this up to show you, we just redid this map a couple of weeks ago and really had to broaden the area of everybody. And with it being some civilians, some criminal investigators, you can imagine, you know, somebody in District 2 that is an enormous area, that person is actually a civilian investigator. So if there's a criminal complaint that happens in that area, someone from one of these other ones has to go to that area. So you can imagine, you know, if, and I don't know how far people drive, but if part of your day is just 2 hours to where you need to go and 2 hours back, it's a big haul sometimes. We try and do as much as we can over the phone, you know, in the computer, but some things just need, you know, feet on the ground, as they say, right there dealing with it. So we are covering a big area, as Director Cochran said, and very busy currently with a bunch of the fraudulent issues that are going on, which I'll get into here in a bit, but yeah, go ahead. So as I said earlier, so the DMV did in 2017 introduce the Automated Vehicle Inspection Program, which we call AVIP. During that time, no new inspection requirements were made. It just simply switched from that paper process to that electronic data process. This was actually mandated, I believe, by the federal government to be able to take part in the Clean Air Act, right? So part of the Clean Air Act was that you had to be electronically automated. So that was the step in that direction. And then as part of that, what we decided to do as part of that, was to improve motorist convenience in collaboration with Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, the Dealership Association, independent dealer stations, reviewed and updated 3 of the periodic inspection manuals. If you want to go ahead and go to the next one. So this happened in 2019. So 2017, we get our program in place. A couple of years later, we start to realize, okay, let's make this even more convenient, right? We had to take these 3 inspection manuals, and what we wanted to do was get them down to 1, all in one place. So in 2019, that started. If you want to go to the next slide. So this process took about a year. So we took 3 manuals, cut them down to 1, and it took about a year to do so. What we did is we took this team, and again, this is not an all-encompassing team, right? So you see a lot of DMV folks on there. We use multiple inspection station owners. We use, you know, big stations like a big dealership, right? And then we also used a smaller station that may be in a town where they're only seeing 1 to 2 vehicles a day. And what are your issues? What are your problems? There was a House Transportation member actually on that committee as well. And then whenever they needed some type of expertise in a certain area, they would call someone in. So, you know, if they needed an engineer or environmentalist person, they would go find them. If they had a couple of questions about Harley Davidsons, if you know, Wilkins Harley Davidson, they would call the owner, Mr. Lyon, and say, hey, this is what we're dealing with right now. Let's get some expertise. So it took a while. It took a year, but it got done. If you want to go to the next slide. And if I'm talking too fast, just stop me whenever if there's questions. So So, and part of that rewrite of that manual, right, we look at the governor's priorities. So let's grow Vermont's economy, make it more affordable and protect the most vulnerable. If you want to go next slide. So some of the goals to do that, right? So let's remove items that were not critical just to the safe operation of the vehicle, right? We get a lot of complaints about that. Like, how does this, why is this thing part of the inspection if I don't think it's a safety issue, right? So like the front plates, we took that out of the inspection manual. Like, yeah, there is no reason why a front plate being on your vehicle has anything to do with how the vehicle operates, or any like safety issue for you driving your vehicle. So does it need to be on the safety inspection? Probably not. So they removed that. There used to be some headlight wipers that were on certain cars, and if they were on there, had to be working, right? It's like they don't even make cars with headlight wipers really anymore. So does that really need to be on in the inspection manual? No. So they removed a bunch of stuff thinking about like affordability, because everything that's on there that is not necessarily, I don't want to say needed, but it is not a safety concern, to fix it may cost the person money, right? Like if they don't have, like I lost my front plate, well, they're going to have to go buy a new front plate. So also thinking about affordability with all the things that we took out as well. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, I'm not supposed to.
In some of those changes that you were talking about, are the inspectors still making the drivers aware that
Yeah.
these, because like I think you could be pulled over
Right.
for not having a
Yeah.
plate, but it's not a safety issue.
Yeah. And I was going to touch on it here soon, but I can touch on it now.
I'm
So
happy to wait.
yeah, well, I'll just tell you real quickly and I'll go over it again and you'll see like it would be an advisory item. So we changed when we modernized the system. We said, let's also have things where like, hey, they may want to know that if you don't have your front license plate on, you are in violation of, Title 23 VSA, and here's the statute, and you could still get pulled over by a police officer and given a ticket, even though it's not on there. So like front license plate, yeah, tinted windows, things like that.
What if you have one of those Vermont strong plates? Is that legal?
So those are legal. It was written in, I believe, when they made I believe the governor decided to allow those. That was written in. So Vermont strong plates are now full-time, good to go. When they first came out, I believe it was a time. It was like you can have this for, I think it was Irene the first time they came out, right?
Mhm.
So you can have this for, I forget what it was, 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, something like that. And then you got to take it off, right? But the Vermont strong are good to go. You will still see a lot of other things over the front plate or instead of the front plate, which it's interesting because you'll stop people, right? And you'll talk to them and they say, well, you can have Vermont strong plate. It's like, well, yeah, that's allowed. Here's the law. So, but yeah, those are still good to go. Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, which I learned last year, your real license plate has to be underneath the Vermont Strong license plate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So getting back to this, so a lot of it again, the affordability, like is some of those issues that were prior on that inspection, can we wait a little bit? Let's make some of those issues that are, maybe more costly, but not necessarily to do with safety. Let's give people a little more time to fix those things, save up money. Like if you're a mechanic, all of a sudden, if you went in for a, however much it costs, a $90 inspection, and then you come out with a $2,000 bill, that's tough on anybody, right? So we tried to basically slim down the inspection manual so that all of those things weren't necessarily needed for inspection right now. And over the next year, like your mechanic could say like, well, by next year, let's have this fixed. So it gives you a little bit of time to budget for it. Again, so modernize, simplifying, and clarify a lot of ambiguous language that was in the old manuals. Obviously, it took a little bit of education on the side of the public, and also on the side of the inspection mechanics and the stations of what they needed to do. So honestly, that's ongoing forever because we're always getting new mechanics, right? And everyone brings in their past, right? And they're like, well, I thought you couldn't have, this, that, or the other thing, but they actually have to read the inspection manual and go by what it says. And, the more times it changes, obviously that's going to cause more issues for us because we're going to have to re-educate the public and the inspection mechanics. Like I said, there's now over 600 mechanics in the state. So it's difficult. But yeah, just so everyone knows, during that rewrite, very well researched. They went page by page, by section, word for word, extremely exhaustive. Like I said, it took about a year to complete the entire process from, from the beginning to end, about a year. So I can go next slide. And this just shows, so we did used to have a school bus, manual on its own, a motorcycle, and then a vehicle. It was 574 total pages between the three. They have now all been combined into one manual, 162 pages. So, I mean, 412 pages, if my math is correct real quick, were taken out. So really slimmed it down and, like I said, in with the thoughts of those three goals earlier.
We're gonna break in a few minutes. I'm sorry. We're gonna break in about 5-6 minutes. So find a good spot in the next 5-6 minutes here where we can, where's a good breaking spot?
Okay.
So,
Perfect. Okay, I'll just go through this real quick. You want to go to the next slide? So this is actually what the tablet looks like to a mechanic. And we've made it very easy for anyone to really do. So you're going to go through on each portion. You're going to, like, let's say we're looking here at the visual walk around. So the beginning part of an inspection, you're going to have their tablet right with them. All this is listed right there. It says check the rear license plate. If you didn't know what the requirements are, you can actually click. That's actually a hyperlink, and it's going to bring you right to the page in the manual and say, this is what you need to do. You need to walk around. You need to check that it's there. You need to make sure that you can see the words, Green Mountain, Vermont. It's not blocked. It's not faded. It's all of those things, right? So it's going to tell them right then and there. They're then going to look at the plate, click pass or fail. They can make notes if they want. And then at the end of that section, it's going to pop up, which is the second screen here, which is some advisory items that we've found come up a lot during that walk around. So, so like I said, like the third one there, are the license plates faded, missing, obscured, not securely mounted, or is a sticker displayed in the wrong location? If you click yes on that, it's going to add an advisory item to your inspection report at the end. If you go to the next slide.
question, are these conditions, all these pieces publicly available, like the person who's being inspected can already find it on your website and
Yeah.
the tablet itself?
So that AVIP portal is like a huge piece that probably a lot of people don't know that they can go check. You could go check your inspections on your car for the last however many years, right? And you can see everything that was said on that inspection. It's a public portal. I think you can do it just with the VIN. I don't even think you have to sign up for an account with it. And you can just put your VIN in there and it'll show every inspection with that VIN ever. And it'll say if it passed or failed, and then it'll say why it failed or if there was advisory items. So like we're talking about before, the advisory here. So this would tell you whether you passed, failed, or advised. And every section has those advisories. This is just what it looks like in the tablet. You want to go to the next slide. I'll stop after this slide if that works. So like a license plate, like we talked about, very common. So it's going to say, examine the license plates. And then it's going to tell you why you should reject it if there are no license plates attached to the vehicle. So if there's no license plate at all, reject, you fail that inspection. If there's only one plate attached, it says right there, it should be on the rear. Because like I said, we took out the front plate requirement. But then it'll tell you, advise the customer. So if you hit that advise thing, it's going to say, you may be in violation of state law, 23 VSA 511, and should contact the DMV to acquire a replacement plate. Not having a front plate, still a violation, but not cause to fail a Vermont state inspection. And then if you ask for a vehicle inspection report at the end of your inspection, it's going to come up and it's going to say, plate was missing, faded, or obscured. You may be in violation of this state law. And it's going to give you all that information and why they're saying that, but it's not going to fail them for inspection.
Representative Burke?
Yeah, I just remember that we had this conversation before that you can pass inspection, but you're still in violation of state law.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sort of strange.
So yeah, I mean, no front plate, tinted front windows currently is a big one. There's not a ton of those. Some of the advisories are just like, hey, you know, you might want to get this fixed in the next year or something, but some of them are like, hey, you are in violation of state law when you leave here,
But you can still pass the inspection.
but you can still.
Okay, so this is a great place for us to pick back up the conversation on
Okay.
it, because also those inspectors are not law enforcement people, right? So they're,
Correct.
it does an interesting line there that we, could, I apologize for the unexpected, interruption,
Yeah,
but
no,
we need to take a break and it should be no more than 15, or maybe 20 at the most, but we'll look to start between 10